Hello everyone, welcome back to this video series on clinical SAS SDTM programming. In this video, we will see an example of FA dataset creation, which is findings about events or interventions. So we will continue to build on the previous lesson which we have seen for CE, because this has additional findings related to the clinical events which we have described in a previous CE video, which is CE based on gastroenteritis. So let us try to understand the requirement or concept of FA dataset first, and then we'll move on to the lesson description, CRF, specification, and further details. So in clinical trials, as per SDTM standard, the data collected is classified into three general observation classes. We know that it is events, interventions, events, and findings. Sometimes we may need to collect additional information about the events or interventions. So as per SDTM standard, we have to represent the additional information collected about events or interventions in a dataset called as findings about, which is abbreviated as FA. So these findings about share the same list of variables as that of a SDTM findings domain, but has an additional variable named FAOBJ, which stands for objective of the observation or test presented on a record. So it will have all the same variables which could be generally seen in a findings dataset like lab or vital signs or ECG, but we'll have an additional variable called OBJ, which is FAOBJ. So some examples for where you may need FA dataset include, so additional details about vomiting in a vaccine study. So we have seen that in SDTM CE example in an earlier video. So occurrence of vomiting in a vomiting study is an event, and we may want to collect additional information about this event in terms of total number of vomiting episodes and volume of vomiting uh, as an additional information in, in addition to the collection of information whether vomiting occurred or not. So the occurrence of vomiting would go and sit in our CE as it is of event of interest, and then these two additional questions information would be mapped to our FA domain, and we create a separate test CD for number of episodes and separate test CD for volume of vomit, and then store the associated result in FAORRES and corresponding numeric or standard corresponding standard result character and standard result numeric variables in FA. And we do not have standard variables in the events class to represent this information in AE. Uh, okay, as per SDTM standard, these additional questions about an event we need to report in FA domain to present this data, so which I have described already. So additional details about bone fractures in osteoporosis study. So bone fracture is considered an event, and any additional information collected about this event has to be presented in FA domain. So some additional questions could be like reason for bone fracture, activity being performed when bone fracture was supposed to have occurred, any further complications occurred because of the bone fracture, whether the information is collected as yes or no. So bone fracture could be collected as occurred or not in your events dataset, any of the events dataset, and then additional questions related to those would be collected in FA domain. And then what type of information is typically collected or present in FA domain? So as discussed earlier, so it will share the same set of variables as findings, but we'll have an additional variable named FAOBJ to indicate what is the objective of the test that is mentioned on a particular row. So we have variable for objective for which the test is collected, and then short name for the test, name of the test that is being collected, and the result in collected units and in standard units after applying the conversion factors where applicable, and the date time of collection. So these are the minimum set of variables that would be required in FA domain. So now let us go to the lesson description. So this lesson will see complete key programming of findings about domain. So in which let me reload. So here if we see, so we will see findings related to gastroenteritis, so which we have seen as part of SDTM CE LGE 01 lesson, a clinical event in a vaccine study. So occurrence and number of episodes of diarrhea are collected, and diarrhea and vomiting are collected over different days. Three collections were there in a day and over three 8-hour intervals. So additional details related to the event are also collected in this example of CE. So those additional details include required healthcare visit and type of visit, and whether oral rehydration was needed, and whether IV hydration was needed to handle the diarrhea and vomiting episodes, and whether it required any hospitalization for those diarrhea or vomiting events. So we'll now move on to the CRF to see what are the questions that were going into CE and what are the questions that get mapped to FA domain. So here we are seeing the same set of CRFs which we have seen in the previous video of CE for LGE, which is gastroenteritis. So here we have form for gastroenteritis event symptoms, and we have event details form. So let us see the SDTM annotations for each of these questions. So for start date of event, and along with the start date, we are creating a variable called FACAT and assigning the text of gastroenteritis for it, because these set of rows correspond to the gastroenteritis. And then we will not in detail see the questions or the annotations related to CE because we have covered this in CE. So here FACAT is we are being asked to assign as gastroenteritis, and then for FA group ID, so we are being asked to convert the CEDAT raw value to FA group ID in ISO 8601 format. And then let us see the next annotation. So we are not mapping this field to FA, so that is fine. And then we have date of assessment. So the same field information which went into CEDTC is also going to FADTC here. And then any diarrhea episodes from 12 a.m. to 8 a.m. in the morning. So we have some information going into CE. So here we are creating we are being asked to assign the text of diarrhea to FAOBJ variable and FAEVINTX as episodes from 01 to 8 in the morning, and then FAORRES when FA tested is equal to occur. So we are being asked to create a row for uh, this question. So with the value of FA tested is equal to occur, FAOBJ is equal to diarrhea, and the FAEVINTX as the text specified here. So one row would be created for this question, and the associated result would go and sit in FAORRES on the row when FA tested is equal to occur, and EVINTX is equal to this, and OBJ is equal to this. And then if yes, number of episodes from 01 to 8. So we are being asked to create a record with FAOBJ is equal to diarrhea, FAEVINTX is equal to episodes from 01 to 8 in the morning, and then FAORRES when FA test CD is equal to episode num. So we are, if we have to closely look here, so we are creating a row for occurrence and row for number of episodes. On these two records, the test CD is differing. For occurrence, we are using a FA test CD of occur, and for episodes, so we are using a test CD of EPSD NUM. And the resulting value is going into FAORRAs here and also the same. But the information is becoming part of two different rows. So these are two different variables in our input data set, and the information is becoming two different data sets and two different rows in our FA SDTM data set. And as both of these correspond to the interval of 0, 0, 1 to 8, so we are indicating that on the row variable FAEVINTX. And then similarly, we will have variables for rows will be created in FA for the second interval of 8 to 16. So all the other information would remain the same, only the EVINTX would get changed. But on this row, so we will be using the information from diaoccur2 and dianum2 for occur test CD and episode number test CD. And similarly, we will be capturing the information for other intervals and also of vomiting. So we have diarrhea and then we have vomiting collected in 3 intervals. So we will map all the information to FA domain, and we will differentiate the rows based on the objective, interval, and the associated test CD. So we are using the test CD of occur for the questions where it is yes or no, and we are using the test CD of EPST num for number of episodes, and we are using the objective as diarrhea for the questions related to diarrhea, and objective as vomiting for our vomiting related questions. So let us now see the next form that is collected. So it is event details. So on this form, again, what information do we have? So we have start date of the event, so which is being collected or mapped to FA group ID. And then for FA cat, so we are being asked to populate it as gastroenteritis details here. So in the previous form, it was just gastroenteritis. So here it is additional details about gastroenteritis. So now what is the next question? So did the event require healthcare provided visit? So let's see where this information is getting mapped to. So here we have the objective collected as healthcare provided visit, and the information is mapped to a particular test CD called occur, and we will store the information of yes or no in the variable FAO or RES. And then if the previous question is marked as yes, so we have this additional follow-up question. What is the healthcare visit type, whether it is outpatient or emergency room? So let us see where this information gets mapped to. So FAOBJ is equal to healthcare provided visit, FAORRES when FA test CD is equal to H of vis type. So when FA test CD is equal to occur is equal to yes, so we will have this additional record with H of vis type test CD, and the information from hcare underscore type would go and sit in this FAORRES. And then we have a next question which asks whether the patient required oral rehydration to treat diarrhea and vomiting. So we are creating a separate test CD for it with the objective of oral rehydration and test CD as occur. And then we have next question which is required intravenous hydration. So we will map this to in its own test CD with a different objective. FAOBJ is equal to intravenous hydration and FA test CD is equal to occur. And then we have the next question, did this result in hospitalization of the subject? So we are creating a row with FAOBJ is equal to resulted in hospitalization, and on with the test CD of occur, and the associated result would go and sit in FAO or RES. So we are converting the information present as variables to rows on each of those rows. So we are using the variables OBJ, EVINTX, ORRES, and test CD to distinguish the results. So basically these are the three variables that distinguish the information, or we'll be able to trace back to the parent question. OBJ, EVINTX, and test CD will uniquely be available for each of the questions. So they will not be same across any two questions. So they will be different. So let us now go to the specification. So here we have variable name, label, general comment, and form specific derivation logics. So here for study ID, we are being asked to populate as myCSG, and for domain, so we are being asked to populate as FA, and for use sub JD, we are being asked to use the value from subject variable. For FAC, so we are being asked to sort the data based on use sub JD, group ID, objective, test CD, DTC, EVINTX, and then set to 1 on the first record of each subject, and otherwise increment by 1 for each subsequent record within the subject. And for FA group ID, so for CE events form, so we are being asked to use the value present in CE DAT raw and convert it into ISO 8601 format. And same we have in CE details also, we have same named variable. So we are being asked to use for the records coming from CE details. So we'll have to use CE DAT underscore raw from this data set. And then we have our FA test CD. So here it says test corresponding to occurrence of diarrhea and vomiting, and test corresponding to number of episodes and of diarrhea and vomiting. So we had two questions for each of the cases. So one is whether the event occurred or not, and if it occurred, the number of episodes. So whether diarrhea occurred or not, and if yes, so total number of episodes of diarrhea occurred. So we have the specification split into these two. So let us now try to see the test corresponding to diarrhea and vomiting occurrence. So create a test CD with FA test CD is equal to occur to store the information from dia-occur1 with FAOBJ is equal to diarrhea, FAEV INTX is equal to episodes from 1001 to 8 o'clock. So which means we have to use the information present in dia-occur1 and assign FA test CD as occur, FA OBJ is equal to diarrhea, and FA interval text as episodes from 001 to 08 and store the result from this variable into FAORRES. So we are being given the instruction for multiple variables within the context of FA test CD. So we would be creating a row for this condition, and similarly for dia-occur2, which is for occurrence of the event diarrhea from 8 o'clock in the morning to 4 p.m. And then we will be creating a new row with FA test CD is equal to occur and FAOBJ is equal to diarrhea with EVINTX as episodes from 16 to 24. So we will have 3 rows created for the occurrence of diarrhea from a single parent record in the raw data set. And then we are being asked to repeat the same process for vomiting occur, but with the objective populated as vomiting here. And then we have instructions for creating the number of episodes of diarrhea and vomiting. So here we are being asked to create a record with a test CD of episode num to store the information from dia-num1 where objective is equal to diarrhea and FA EVINTX is equal to the corresponding episode text. So we are using dia-num1, dia-num2, and dia-num3 to create a EPSD num test CDs, and we are distinguishing those 3 different variables using FAEVINTX here. And the same process would be repeated for our vomiting. And then there are certain set of test CDs that are supposed to be created from the CE details page. So here we are being given the instructions for those. So create a record with FA test CD is equal to occur to store the information in HCare with FAOBJ is equal to healthcare provided visit. And then we are creating this HOVIS type variable. We are creating a record with FA test CD is equal to HOVIS type to store the information from HCare type when FAOBJ is equal to healthcare provided visit. Create this record only when HCare is Y. So which means we have seen that there was a question whether the healthcare visit was required or not. If it was required, what was the type of the healthcare visit. So we will have to create the record for HOVIS type only when the question HCare is marked as yes. And then we have the next variable which says create a record with FA test CD is equal to occur to store the information from OREHYD with FAOBJ is equal to oral rehydration. And similarly, we are creating 2 additional tests for intravenous hydration and resulted in hospitalization. So you should better try to visualize this by looking at the annotations rather than looking at the specification here. So I'll go back to the CRF once again and then see what we were doing here. So we are creating a separate test CD for separate row with the combination of FAOBJ and FA test CD for each of these questions collected on the CRF. So the same information is translated into specification, but we will be able to better visualize if we take a look at the CRF. And then for FA test CD, so we are being asked to populate as number of episodes when FA test CD is equal to EPSD num and occurrence when FA test CD is equal to occur and when FA test CD is equal to HOVIS type. So we are being asked to populate the FA test as healthcare visit type. And then for FAOBJ, we have been given the details for this under FA test CD derivation itself. And then for FA CAT, we are being asked to populate as gastroenteritis for the records coming from what was the dataset CE events, and for the records coming from CE event details, so we are being asked to populate it as gastroenteritis details. and ORRES. So we have seen the derivation logic provided under FA test CD itself for both the forms. And then for FA ORRESU, so we are being asked to leave them as null. And for FA STRESE, so we are being given the logic. So when FA ORRES is yes, so we are being asked to populate it as Y. And when it is no, we are being asked to populate it as no as the standard result character. And for FASTRESN, so populate using FAORRES when the result is numeric. So out of all the test series that we are going to create, I think only the number of episodes have a numeric meaning on those rows. So we'll have the FASTRESN populated. And for FASTRESU, populate using FAORRESU is what specified. And then for FA eval, so it is mentioned as populate as investigator because investigator is evaluating these things. And then FADTC, so we are being asked to populate it using GEDAT underscore raw, and there is no specific question which is collecting the information for FADTC under CE details dataset, so there is no need for creating that. And for FAEV so we were given the required details under FA test CD itself. So we will be using the information specified here to create our FAEV variable as well. Now this completed the specification for FA domain. Now let us move to the programming aspect. So the overall idea here is to create rows from variables. So here we will be creating a row for the information present in diaoccur and associate populate the variables of FA accordingly. And similarly, we will create a row for a number of diarrhea episodes with the values specified here for FA, OBJ, EVINTX, test CD, etc. So we will see how this can be programmed. So we will basically make use of our explicit output statements to create a row for each of the variables collected in CE events and CE details page. So I'll try to explain this code here in full-fledged mode. We'll take a look at the intermediate datasets and final dataset once we complete the explanation of this code. So here we had two input datasets. The first one was CE events and the second one was CE details. So I am creating a dataset called event01 as the parent dataset for CE events and detail01 for the records which were coming from CE details page. So I am using event01 as the input dataset and creating a dataset called event02. So basically we are processing this for the rows which are present in our events page. So common variables which are applicable on all rows. So we were asked to assign the category as gastroenteritis for all the records coming from this events dataset. So we are assigning that here. And then for FA group ID, we were asked to use the value from CEDAT raw and populate it in ISO 8601 notation. So we are converting the existing date value, which is in character format, to numeric first, and then converting back into character using put function with YYMMDD 10 format, which would convert the date into ISO 8601 notation of 4 character wide year with 2 character wide month and 2 characters wide day value. And then similar processing is done for FADTC but using GEDAT underscore raw variable here. And then we are processing for the rows which correspond to diarrhea. So create records corresponding to diarrhea occurrence. So we have seen that we had dia occur 1, dia occur 2 and dia occur 3. So we had to create a separate row for each in our FA dataset. So we are doing that here. So as we are now handling the records for diarrhea, so I am setting the objective as diarrhea and as I am creating FATCD of occur. So I am outputting a record for each instance. So here for the first time I'm using the value of coming from diaoccur 1 for FA or RES and outputting it. So but the information present in diaoccur 1 corresponds to the episodes from 12 a.m. to 8 a.m. So I am assigning the FAEV INTX as the text specified in the specification for this first set of episodes. So I am outputting the record. So FA OBJ would be diarrhea, FA test CD is equal to occur, FAORRES on this instance of output. So we are using the value from dia-occur1, and then FAEV INTX is assigned accordingly. And on the second instance of the output, so before we outputted it, what we have done here is assign the value of dia-occur to FAORRES. So this is now written out to your output dataset. You would have a record for it in your output dataset. And before outputting the next time, what I'm doing here is I am assigning the value from dia-occur2 to FAORRES and overwriting the existing value of episodes from 01 to 8 with the value of episodes from 81 to 16, because on this row which is getting outputted here, this is corresponding to dia-occur2, which indicates that the number of occurrence of diarrhea from the second episode interval of 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then I am outputting the third record for diarrhea dia-occur3 with the specified interval of 4 p.m. to midnight. So three records would be outputted once using dia-occur1 in FAORRES, second time using dia-occur2, and the third time using dia-occur3, and with the text distinguishing these three FAORRES value in FAEV INTX variable. And then we are creating the records for diarrhea episodes. So these are the case records that are getting created for our occurrence variables. And these are the variables that are getting created. These are the rows that are getting created for number of episodes. And then for number of episodes, so we are checking, assigning the value of for FATestcd as EPST_num. And then we are checking if the result is not missing in dia-num1, because these will be populated only when the occurrence would have been yes. So we would have to create only a row when there is a non-missing value in the number of episodes. So we are checking whether the dia-num1 is not missing. If that is the case, so we are assigning the value from dia-num1 to original result and assigning the text in FAEV INTX accordingly and outputting the record. And then we are creating a record for dia-num2, which corresponds to the number of episodes in the second interval. And then we are creating a record for third interval with the result value stored coming from dia-num3 variable, and the text in FAEV INTX corresponds to the third interval, and then outputting the record. So till here what will happen is we will have the records corresponding to diarrhea outputted. So three records possible for occurrence, and whether if there were number of episodes, so we would have a record created for episode num for these three variables dia-num1, 2 and 3. And then same processing is done for vomiting. So we would create three rows for occurrence using the variables vomiting occur, vomiting occur 2 and vomiting occur 3, and episode variables. So we are creating again three rows. So here using vom num1, vomiting number 2 and vomiting number 3, and we are assigning the values for FAORRES, and INTX based on the type of information that is being used for the result variable. So 1 corresponds to interval 1, so we are assigning the text accordingly for EVINTX, and then 2 corresponds to interval 2, so we are using a text which corresponds to interval 2 in EVINTX, and similarly for the third interval. And then this completes the derivation for the test CDs or the rows which are coming from our CE events dataset. And then in the next step, what we would do is we would create the rows which are coming from our CE details page. So we are using our details dataset as input and creating a new dataset called details02. So on this set of records, so we were asked to populate the FA-CAT as gastroenteritis detail. So we are assigning that here. And then for FA group ID, we were asked to use the value from CED80_raw and then convert it into ISO 860 notation. So we are doing that here with this logic. And then we are creating rows for each of the questions that are collected. So the first row that we are creating here is FA OBJ is equal to healthcare provided visit. So we had two questions basically with this objective, whether the healthcare provided visit occurred or not. If it occurred, what is the type of the healthcare visit? So we are creating a row for occur using HCare value on FORRES here and outputting the record. So this would create as the row for healthcare occurred or not. And then we are checking if healthcare is equal to yes. If it is yes, so we are creating a record for F at SED is equal to HOVs type. But here we are using the where information from HCare type in FA over RES and outputting the record. So we will get the value from HCare visit outputted under FA over RES. And then we are creating records for oral rehydration objective. So with the test CD of occur, so we are storing the result from oral rehydration variable in FAORRES and outputting it again. So, and then we have intravenous hydration objective. So with for which the variable result has to be pulled from IV REHYD for which is IV rehydration, and then output that record. And then we have resulted in hospitalization record. We are assigning the objective accordingly and then populating the test CD as occur as specified in the specification and annotation. And then we are using the information from hosp variable to store in FAO or RES and then outputting the record. So this will complete the records creation for the information that is present in our details page. And then we are combining the records all the records that we have created from events page and details page into a single dataset and calling that as all01. And then we are creating here common variables which are applicable to the records coming from both events page and also the details page. So we have assigned the text myCSG for the study ID and FA for the domain variable, and we were asked to use the variable subject for useSubjID, so we are doing that here. And then we are completing the derivation for FA test here. So we had three unique test values possible across all the records that we have created. So first one is EPST second one is occur, third one is HOVs type. So we are assigning the text of number of episodes to FA test when FA test CD is EPST and then we are assigning the text of occurrence when FA test CD is equal to occur and healthcare visit type when test CD is equal to HOVs type. And then for FASTRESC, we were asked to convert the original result of yes to y and no to n. So we are doing that here. On all the other instances, we are just copying the value from FAORRES to FASTRESC. And then for FASTRESN, wherever applicable, so we are converting the values in FAOSTRESC to numeric format using input function. So this STRESN would be populated from the data which we have will be populated only for the cases of number of episodes. And then as we do not have any test CDs which required units, so because all we needed is yes no questions and we had the number of episodes. For any of those things we do not have any meaning for units as such. So we are setting the original result unit as null because this is an expected variable in SDTM FA domain. So and FASTRESU, we are assigning the value from FAORRESU. And for FA eval, we were asked to assign the value of investigator, so we are assigning that here. And then we are deriving our FA seek. As per the specification, we were asked to sort the records based on subject ID, objective, test CD, DTC, and EVINTX. And then we are asked to set the value of 1 on the first record of each subject. On the subsequent records, we were asked to increment the value by 1. So we are making use of some statement to do that here. And in the final step, what we are doing here is we are creating a macro variable to store only the variable specified in the specification. And then using that macro variable here in the next step to keep only those variables. So which will create our final FA dataset. So let us now try to go through the data sets here. So we had information from CE events page and CE details page here. So here we will be using information from these two data sets to create rows here. So here we created our rows corresponding to detail 01. Here if we see we had information for HCare type, rehydration, and IV rehydration required, hospitalization required. So we have 5 pieces of information which was supposed to be created as 5 different rows in FA details. So if we take a look at detail 02, so here we have 5 different rows created. So here at the max, so we will have 5 rows created. So there can be case wherein hcare is equal to no and hcare type is equal to will be null in that case. So what will be the maximum number of records created is, so the maximum number of records created here would be 5, and at a minimum we will have 4 records created on the cases where hcare is equal to no. So if we take a look at the information here, so we were expecting so 5 records to be populated here, and here why we have 5 records created. So we have them distinguished between by objective variable and also the test CD, and the result is present in the variable FAORRES. And then for events, it becomes a little more complex to understand the record structure. But if we come here, so if we assume that on all the rows, if we have the occurrence populated, so we will have for the occurrence we will have 36 records, because we have 6 rows here and 6 occurrence questions, so we'll have 36 rows. And let's assume that everywhere it is y. So what is the maximum number of possible records? So we will have the number of episodes also populated in those cases. So we'll have at the max 36 records created for occurrences and 36 records created for number of episodes. It will be 72 records from this 6 records would be created if everything was yes and all the rows had the number of episodes populated. But there can be cases wherein the number of episodes would not be populated if the event had not occurred. So we are creating rows only for those cases where for the episodes when the event occurred. So we will have 36 occurrences for our occur test CD, but we'll have fewer number of records for episodes because we will have only few number of episodes. So let us try to understand the record count as well. So if we see here, so let's go to our event 02 dataset. So let us try to filter for occur. So we were expecting 36 records. So I don't know if we will be able to know from this, so whether we have 36 records here or not. So we will not know. But again, theoretically, we'll have 36 records for occurrence, and then at a max of 36 number of episodes if every occurrence was y. I think this basically summed up the creation of FA domain. So you will have to relate it with your CE domain, which we have created in a separate video. Thank you for watching and keep learning.